Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming from right here in our quaint little studio. I'm, of course, your host, John Campea. Joining me in studio today is, of course, our technical producer, Jonathan Voico.
Hello, everybody.
Writer, director, producer, one of the masterminds behind True Noir, which is available now, as of today, on Spotify. And where else can people go get True Noir if they want to go?
Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Audible is Amazon. You can get it wherever. You can and judge me by my work.
And of course, most importantly, you guys are here. Thank you so much for being here, making our little show part of your day. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to start off by talking about a number of predetermined topics we got lined up for you guys. Then in the second part of the show, that's when we take your live comments and questions. If you have a thought, theory, opinion, question, or issue you'd like us to discuss, as long as we deem it appropriate to be discussed on the show, you can fire it on into our super chats and you'll hear us address it in the second part of the show. The super chats are open right now. I will turn them off at some point once it gets a little too full, but for now they're open. And if you've got a comment you'd like to hear us address, go ahead and fire it on in. Hey, you know what? I just got to give a shout out to something. So you can bring this up, Jonathan. So we started our new D&D campaign.
Nerds.
Yep. Real world, be gone. We started our new campaign and we did something. We're doing something that we have never done before. Because Anne's been our dungeon master for the last 5 years. We actually decided we hired a dungeon master, a guy who actually worked at Wizards of the Coast for a whole bunch of years. And he's running our game from us from Seattle remotely. But I got I've never done it before, but I highly encourage it, guys. If you want to get a group of people together and start up a D&D campaign, but none of you know how to run a game, go online. You can find them. I highly recommend hiring a dungeon master. It was really, really good. Costs a little bit of money to do it, but it was an awful lot of fun.
Can you find them on LinkedIn?
That's a very good question.
I'm just what a cool job to have.
I'm sure.
Oh, I know. The reason we knew this one in particular is because, of course, Anne used to be a bigwig over at Hasbro, and Hasbro, of course, owns Wizards of the Coast. So that's how she knew the guy already. So when we decided to get a new game going, and Anne didn't want to spend her whole week, making the campaigns, she said, we should hire this guy. And we did. Anyway, guys, highly recommend if you want to get into D&D, hire yourself a dungeon master. It costs a little bit, but it saves you lots of time and it made the game a lot of fun. Anyway, there's my pitch for the day. All right. With all that down, guys, let's get things started, shall we? We are going to start off, of course, with what is the biggest news in the world of movies the last 6 or 7 years, the Warner Brothers potential takeover, Netflix, Paramount, all that kind of stuff. Now, you guys will remember that the other day we talked about the fact that there was some talk that Warner Brothers might be open to reopening negotiations with Paramount. Of course, Paramount hadn't made any significant improvements to their bid since the board of Warner Brothers rejected it and went with the Netflix bid. But according to this new story in The Hollywood Reporter, Warner Brothers is giving Paramount 1 week. They're giving them 1 week to pitch to them Paramount's final and best offer. So you got 1 week. Now, it should be noted that Netflix gave permission to Warner Brothers to give them a 7-day window to allow Paramount to give a pitch. So Paramount now has 7 days to what Warner Brothers is saying. 7 days. That's it. That's all it. After those 7 days, we're not talking to you anymore. We're not listening to you anymore. But here you go. Give us your best and final. It should also be noted that a couple of other things have happened. Number one, the board is still recommending to the shareholders that they go with the Netflix deal. Again, we'll see if Paramount can change their minds with the new and final bid. But one of the things apparently, according to the story, that Netflix has communicated to Paramount that is a concern of theirs about Paramount's bid is it said Warner Brothers is actually very concerned about so much of the money for Paramount's bid is coming from foreign investment sources. And they say that on top of making it questionable that you're actually going to be able to execute this deal, it gives us national security concerns.
Right.
About all that kind of stuff. And they kind of expressed that to Paramount. So they were kind of saying to Paramount, get your money from somewhere else without saying, get your money from somewhere else. but we'll see how that all comes together. But at least on the surface, it kind of looks like we might finally have some finality to this whole thing. Because remember, I believe the shareholders are scheduled to vote. I think they're scheduled to vote in March sometime. So that will close it. That'll end it. So we are close to the finish line on this, but apparently Warner Brothers is giving Paramount one last stab at it. Whether they'll come back with more saber rattling or they'll actually come back with a legitimate improvement to their bid, we're going to find out within a week, I guess. Rob, you read this story about Warner Brothers and Netflix saying Paramount's got 1 week to submit another bid if they want, because if they do improve it, I suspect Netflix will just then improve their bid too. But I don't know. What do you take away from all this?
Well, look, here's the problem. The studios are still working. You know, Warner Brothers has a very robust 2026 slate. You have hundreds, if not thousands of people, tens of thousands of people across the entire Warner Brothers ecosystem that are trying to do a great job. And as we saw with Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights, which came out last weekend, they are doing the business of movie making. What's Paramount doing? You know, and I'm like, how do you run a business with this kind of ridiculousness? I mean, I understand corporate mergers. I get it. Capitalism 101. I understand. But the fact is, Warner Brothers is working. Paramount, not so much.
Not so much right now.
You know, you don't have a studio that's coming from the top of their game. Netflix is at the top of its game. And what I don't understand is if you look at these two companies, I understand in the short term you might make a couple of more bucks. But where's Paramount's vision for Warner Brothers?
They've got a new Jackass movie coming out, Rob.
Wow.
What more vision do you need?
Their new episodes of Star Trek are really amazing. But I'm like, here's the thing. I just want to know, like, from a corporate standpoint, if I was an investor, I would like to know, I have stock in Warner Brothers. How are you going to, in our new onslaught of AI and everything that's going on with the industry, Warner Brothers has been kicking ass and taking names for at least the last 365 days. What have you done? What are you doing? Like, are you going to run Warner Brothers the way you've run Paramount since you acquired it? What have you done? And I'm like, Netflix, Ted Sarandos came out and said, you know what? We're going to let Warner Brothers do the business of Warner Brothers because we don't really want to be into theatrical marketing. Let Warner Brothers put movies in theaters until they dry up and die. But right now, Warner Brothers is making tens of millions of dollars when they made $80 million in a weekend. I mean, we don't even know how to get movies in theaters and make money. They paid for Wuthering Heights. We have to pay for our own movies. But that's the thing that really bothers me about this. Where's the vision? Where's the vision of Skydance Paramount about what they're going to do with Warner Brothers? What are they going to do with their classic library? What are they going to do with, I mean, my God, Warner Brothers released last week a beautiful restoration of Ben-Hur, one of the great movies of all time, on 2 BD100s. You can get it on physical media. They spent no expense to put that out. They are working now, I can't say what it is, on a restoration that's going to be released at Christmas time of one of the most classic films of all of early cinema. And you know what? Warner Brothers is doing that work. Is Paramount? No, we get Jackass.
Yeah, I mean, see, look, and that's the thing. Like, I've been saying this whole time that one of the things that I would love to see Paramount do is just focus on Paramount. Because, like, last year, you guys took over Paramount. Great. And what are we getting this year? Nothing. The weakest, most pathetic looking. They've got one or two interesting looking things, but when you look at their overall slate for 2026, they by far, this is objective, they have the weakest lineup of any movie studio. Now, you can't put all of that on the Ellisons because it takes a while. A lot of this stuff was already in process. Be fair, but that just doubles the emphasis, the need, Rob, on what you're talking about here is, listen, in the whole time the Ellisons have had Paramount, and they've had it for a while now. No idea what their vision for the company is. We're going to put out movies, okay? Tell me some of the movies you're putting out. Because although I don't really hold them exclusively responsible for the weak slate we've got in 2026, that weak slate just makes it all the more important that they be parading around talking about, but look at what we got coming in 2027.
Yeah, but
And instead of that, David Ellison's running around like a petulant little fucking child going, well, I want Warner Brothers. And because that's, by the way, that is an exact interpretation of how he sounds.
But remember, people love him. People do love David Ellison. They do. But that's why I don't understand this. For a man who loves movies, why don't you concentrate on showing the world how much you're going to do with the studio that you already have? I mean, it's frustrating.
remember a few weeks ago, you and I talked on the show, and we were going through the rundown of what David Ellison was promising, and he promised 30 films a year, and then you look in the fine print per studio. Okay, and then we look down at the slate. Warner Brothers is releasing 17 next year.
Yeah.
So are you going to give us fewer? Or are they already hitting a higher mark than what you're promising? So what's the point?
Yeah. Again, look. All power to them. If Paramount can come out and offer a legitimate improved bid and have better financing for their bid, and they position themselves as the best bid and Netflix doesn't want to top it, okay, more power to you, but then they're going to lose tens of thousands of jobs at Warner Brothers. They're going to gut it, and they're just going to absorb it into Paramount, a company that right now isn't doing squat. Yeah. So anyway, I again, just to sound like a broken record, I just want to see the Ellisons focus on making Paramount, getting Paramount back to its glory.
This is like if AMC Theaters said, we're going to buy Regal. And it's like, but why? Right now, Regal's doing better than you financially. Focus on your own business.
Yeah, and do better. Anyway, but as we are going to talk a little bit later in the show, Paramount may have some other options. We'll get to that in a little bit. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? Warner Brothers has given Paramount a 7-day window to submit last chance, their final and best offer. And Netflix has said, yeah, go ahead, let Paramount, because they're not going to come. They're confident they're not going to come back with much. Will they come back with something? Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, we talked about Night of the Seven Kingdoms yesterday. I have been so pleasantly surprised by this show. I mean, I love Game of Thrones and I love House of the Dragon. So it's not like, oh, I don't trust in Game of Thrones. But I mean, it just looked like such a small scale story. I don't know the books of Duncan Egg and, you know, the stories of Duncan the Tall. So I just had the show, and I've really been pleasantly surprised by it because it's a very different show from the other Game of Thrones, yet it fits in perfectly. One of my biggest gripes with streaming television has always been their pathetic inability to not put out a season of a show every year. I mean, with much less technology, traditional broadcast channels used to be able to put out 22 episode seasons every year. 22 to 24 episodes every year, like clockwork. Streaming, oh, we need 5 years to get the next 6 episodes ready. Come on. Now, there's some extenuating stuff, I get that. But we have just recently been seeing some movement back towards maybe getting these shows back to annual releases. Of course, Disney Plus has said Daredevil is going to be every year. HBO has said the number one show on TV right now, The Pitt, every year. Well, now they're doubling down on that. This comes to us from Winter is Coming, where HBO boss Casey Bloys is saying, oh yeah, Night of the Seven Kingdoms, annual seasons, every year. This is what they wrote over there. HBO CEO Casey Bloys opened up on how A Night of the Seven Kingdoms has a release strategy unlike other shows of its genre. In an interview with Deadline, Bloys discussed the release strategy for future seasons of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and assured fans HBO wants to ensure each season comes out annually. Yes, they're currently shooting. This will be annual. Again, it was something that we're trying to do. It's not possible for all shows, but it's something that where it's possible creatively to get back to that, and we'd like to try to do that. All right. I love this for a couple of reasons. One, it means we're going to get another season of A Night of the Seven Kingdoms next year. That's great. And we can just talk and focus on that for a bit if we wanted to. But I also want to just say why else I love this. Because he's saying he's already been doing this with The Pit, which was unheard of for streaming TV. And The Pit wasn't just some measly 6 or 8 episodes. It ended up being like 14 episodes, 15 episodes. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah. And it all has to be like congruent. Like they all match each other. So just post-production wise, that schedule must be insane to organize all of that.
Yeah. And again, that's what all network television used to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that he's saying, listen, we know we're not going to be able to do it with every show, but we want to get back to that. We want, for HBO, the gold standard in television series, we want to get back to annual releases of seasons. And Rob, this is no small thing, because I think we saw with Wednesday, we saw a little bit with Severance, stuff like that. When you make an audience wait 2-3 years, you lose some of your steam. You lose some of that momentum.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't look like you lost much, you would have had a lot more if you came out the very next year. You have to strike while the iron's hot. Again, there are some exceptions to that. I'm not saying there's not. But it's great to me to hear that the head of HBO is saying, we recognize this. We have to be more consistent with the releases of these shows. We ask the audience to get on board with them. It's not fair for us to then make them wait 3 years for the next season. So I'm really hoping we're going to see this carry on to Amazon, to Disney Plus, to whatever, that, yeah, it's time to get back to annual releases. Yes, there's going to be some shows where maybe that's not possible, but for the most part, this should be the norm. Anyway, Rob, you read about this. What do you think about that in terms of just for A Night of the Seven Kingdoms and for television as a whole?
6 episodes that are 35 minutes long. Come on. I mean, I'm like, look, to go back to Star Trek: The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine and Voyager, 26 episodes a season, John. I mean, now I understand they're on location, but 35-minute episodes. It used to be that a network show would take 8 days to shoot. No, 8 days times 6. It's like, 2 months if you include the weekends. And then post-production. In a show that's already been made for the better part of a decade and a half. You should have the greatest production pipeline of all time, and this show does not have a whole lot of special effects. The problem is they don't pull the trigger, because these shows, by definition, they're not paid for by advertising. So they cost a hell of a lot more. And I understand that means the output of cash is a lot more. It's all a cash flow issue, I would imagine. But I think our old boy Casey here is right in saying, if you can't get this show out annually, you don't know what you're doing.
Not to mention, this is all shot together. There's no way. There's no way, like with procedural, where that was shot and then it's all packaged separately.
Yeah.
This was all shot like a movie.
They have all the scripts already done when they go in. I mean, what I don't understand is, if you're going to make these shows, do you stop shooting and let your writer's room go home? Like, what do you do? Like, I'm a producer. I've produced movies and TV, and I wonder, how is it that it takes so long? When he comes out and says this, good for you guys. If you can't make this show in 4 or 5 months, I don't understand what you're doing.
Now, there is, to give credit where it's due, there is an element of gambling here. Because one of the things that has led to streaming in its inception, having shows come out every 2 or 3 years, is the fact that, unlike broadcast television, which they would do a pilot,
sure,
and that would be the test, and then sign a 2-season commitment or a 3-season commitment, streaming has traditionally not wanted to commit beyond 1 year. So they shoot 1 season with no commitments for a second, and then all the talent is signing other deals to do other stuff. So one of the things that has been delaying it is that, okay, we put the first season out, it was a hit, we do want to do a second season. Okay, the earliest we can spin it up is in like 2 years. But now with HBO, like the new Harry Potter series, it's going to be a new season every year. They are planning
well,
it
they've
in
given
advance.
it years in advance to make it.
So they planned it out. They've started shooting a year and a half before the first episode's ever going to drop. And they commit to it and they sign everybody and they make the deals. And it'd be good to see them start doing that. Maybe don't, sign them on for 5 seasons, but, at least sign on for 2 or 3 and then go from there. And I love that HBO is leading the way in this. And hopefully this is the way things continue to go with the industry.
I agree. But it should, like you pointed out, I think that's important to remember the way they used to do TV shows. But you would think the people at HBO that has been churning out incredible shows for a long period of time. I mean, Game of Thrones, to be fair, did not get a great start. They had to reshoot the entire pilot. They started from scratch. But with this show, you're over a decade into making Thrones. This show was delightful from the first 5 minutes. And you would think that they would know. You're like, you should be able to tell. It used to be that studio executives had to watch dailies every single day. And they would know as a show was developing what they had. I don't know if anyone does that anymore.
All right,
But it's
guys.
good to see.
Question is for you. We've got a commitment from HBO that we're going to get a new season of a Night of the Seven Kingdoms every year, and that they're going to try to be doing this with more of their shows. We've seen some other streamers start to pick up on that. How big of a deal do you find that to be? I think it's huge. Whatever you guys think, jump down to the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, we thought it's about time to take some of your hot takes.
Uh-oh.
You guys got them all. You guys got all the hot takes. So we thought we'd play a little round today of overreaction. The way overreaction works is really simple. You guys have sent in a whole bunch of your hot takes. Jonathan's got a few picked out for Rob and I to adjudicate, to tell you whether your hot take
Here it
is an
comes.
overreaction or not. So Jonathan, what we got up first?
All right, Rob.
Uh-oh.
What say you here from CS Films Official? If Avengers Doomsday and Secret Wars both underperform reviews and box office, the MCU will never recover.
I don't think that's a hot take. I think that the gamble that Marvel, that Kevin Feige and Disney are making on these movies, it wouldn't surprise me. I can't wait to see the Monday morning quarterbacking after all is said and done on how much money they spent to make these 3 films or 2 films or 1. Doomsday's a film. We know that Secret Wars is a film, but they're talking about splitting it into 2. So
We don't know that they're talking about it, but there are whispers.
yeah, there's whispers.
Well, they got that image with
But
the
let's
3
just
A's in it
assume that they
we've
call it 2
deciphered.
movies. I think that they are going to be, even adjusted for inflation, the most expensive movies ever made. However, and so if they don't work, I think the MCU is in a serious state of what if. So I don't think it's an overreaction. However, they're going to succeed.
Oh,
I'm like, I believe.
Yeah. Listen, I'm actually going to say this isn't an overreaction.
Yeah, it's not.
Oh, sorry. Let me change. It is an overreaction.
All right.
And I'll tell you why I believe it's an overreaction. Now, given the current state of Marvel, having 2 back-to-back Avengers films fall on their face, which they're not going to do, but if they did, that would be crippling. The reason I'm still going to say it's an overreaction, though, is because what Marvel already has planned after Secret Wars, which is the launch of their mutant saga.
Right.
The X-Men. It's kind of like it's not a reboot, but it's kind of in a way a fresh start. So I'm going to say that even if Doomsday and Secret Wars fall on their face, which they won't, but if they did, it's not game over because they already have this new thing coming with their X-Men universe to kind of give everything a new, fresh start. So because of that, I'm going to say even if those 2 things flop, I don't think it's game over for Marvel just yet. All right, what's next?
all right. Next up, we're gonna hear from Max S. John. Eventually, video game movies will be more popular and successful than comic book movies.
Massive overreaction. Now, do I believe that we could hit a day on the calendar 2 years from now where on that day, video game movies are more popular than comic book movies?
The video game singularity.
Yeah. Could there be a day on the calendar where that is true for that day or that week or that month? Sure. But here's the reality. Video game movies, as much as video game properties are improving at an incredible rate right now. Like what we got Fallout, we got Last of Us, we got God of War coming, we've got a Baldur's Gate coming. I mean, listen, it's a very different world for video game movies and TV shows today than it was 3 years ago. But they will never, ever be remotely close to being as big in its heyday as the comic book genre was in its heyday. And by the way, the comic book genre's heyday may not be over because we got Doomsday coming and we got No Way or A Brand New Day coming and we got Secret Wars coming. But like, even if take all that out of it, you're never going to see we're not going to see 12 video game franchises in the $1 billion club. So could we enter like a window of time where comic book movies for 1 month or 1 year, even comic book movies are outdone by video game movies? Sure, maybe in a particular window. But if you're going to talk big picture, video game movies will never surpass, no genre, nothing, Rob, will ever surpass the height and the peak and the pinnacle that the comic book genre has had already and may still yet come. So I'm going to say this is an overreaction. Rob, what about you?
I too think it's an overreaction, but for I think a little different reasons. Comic book movies, like you take your favorite comic book character, Superman, Spider-Man, Batman, what have you. They have had thousands, tens of thousands of different stories with these characters
over the span of decades.
Over the span of decades. A video game might have 1 or 2 or 3 different stories about a character. And the problem with video game movies, unless an audience recognizes the entirety of the video game, not just the character, like The Last of Us doesn't just have to have the characters, it has to have the entire storyline recreated in dramatic form. Video game movies are very limiting unless you have something like Super Mario Brothers that has a myriad of different kinds of titles and different kinds of gameplay. You know, you can play Donkey Kong or you can play Mario Kart, but there's a universe there that you've delved into. But comic book characters just allow, by definition, a wide variety of storytelling that video game characters don't enjoy. And I think that there's just more diversity and you can do more. I mean, we can see a Michael Keaton Batman. We can see a Christian Bale Batman. We can see a Twilight Boy Batman, or we can see Ben Affleck Batman. People will accept those characters and they can do all kinds of different things. I loved what they did with the Batman, made it more detective. He was the Dark Knight detective starting out. Whereas Ben Affleck, the older, beefier, I will kill you with my bare hands Batman. I love that. Video games don't have that luxury. So I think that comic book characters just lend themselves more to great storytelling.
All right, what's next?
All right, we're at the midpoint here, Rob. We're going to hear from Rahul, who says Project Hail Mary is going to be the best movie of the year in terms of quality.
Okay, I got to say I'm all in. I'm all in on Project Hail Mary. But the best in terms of quality, I think that the thing about Project Hail Mary is it is based on a book. And everything that what you hope is that, because it's a great book, that the movie retains the quality of that book. But there's a lot of other different kinds of movies coming out this year that aren't Project Hail Mary, that aren't science fiction, that aren't an unlikely duo saving the universe. You know, there's different kinds of movies. So I don't think it's fair to say, I think it's an overreaction to say that it's going to be the best movie of the year. I think it's going to be one of the best, but there's a lot of really great movies coming down the pike that we've talked about that I'm looking forward to seeing. So I think it is a bit of an overreaction, even though I think it is going to win Best Picture.
I'm going to say it's not an overreaction.
All right.
And I think now that's not me definitively saying it will, in fact, be the best movie of the year. But in all honesty, because of the source material, because of the filmmakers involved, because of the directors involved, and from what we've seen so far, while it will not be anywhere near as big as, say, Endgame or Dune or even The Odyssey, I think it is in every inch of the fight as The Odyssey is or Dune 3 is to be the best film of the year.
Oh,
I think it's got every bit of a chance as those ones have. And so I'm going to say Colin, Project Hail Mary will end up being the best film of the year, I'm going to say I can't call that an overreaction because I think it has every bit of a shot as all those other films we're talking about. So I'm going to say not an overreaction.
All right.
All right.
All right. What's next?
We're going to stay with the best category here, John. Sam L. Jackson says Avengers Doomsday will be the best MCU movie.
I'm going to call that an overreaction. Now, listen, does it have a chance to be? Of course it does. Of course it has a chance to be. Is it going to be excellent? I think it's going to be excellent. Is it going to be wildly crowd-pleasing? I believe it's going to be wildly crowd-pleasing. However, you're talking, when you're saying the best of the MCU, you're talking about movies like Winter Soldier. You're talking about movies like Civil War. You're talking about like movies that are like truly great films, not just great comic book films. So listen, look, Doomsday doesn't need to be the best MCU movie to be a wild success. Does it have a shot? Sure. Will it be successful? Yes. Will it be great? Yes. Will it be entertaining? Yes. But to say it'll be the best MCU movie overall, man, that means it's got to surpass a couple of other truly great classics they've already done. So I'm going to call it an overreaction. Rob, what about you?
I have to agree with you because everything you said about Doomsday, I think is true. I think the movie's going to rock the house. I think it's going to be so much fun to watch. But you know what Doomsday is? Doomsday to me is like going to an awesome rave where you've got a lineup of incredible DJs and you're going there with all your friends. And there's going to be thousands of people and the music is going to be bumping.
The E hits just right.
The E hits just right. It's not speedy at all. And it's going to be great. But here's the thing. It's different than trying to make a great movie out of, say, Winter Soldier, or when you have two guys in Mortal Kombat in Civil War. Doomsday is an event. It's a giant event.
And it drops the bass about 5 times.
Yeah, it totally does. It has a breakdown and drops. I mean,
like
you get
5 different times.
Yeah, dude,
it does.
So you're saying it's the Skrillex of the MCU.
I mean, that's the thing. And I can't, as much as I'm excited about it, it's not going to, I don't think you're going to have there's a lot of quiet moments and character stuff, but dude, it's a bombastic giant, it's like the Super Bowl of MCU movies.
Yeah.
But it's going to be the greatest Super Bowl game you've ever seen played. It's going to be amazing. And the Super Bowl show is going to be, the halftime show is going to be incredible too. But it's not going to be like Winter Soldier, where you have a lot of.
At least we don't think it will.
No, but it's big.
Yeah, it's really big. All right,
That's what
what's
she said.
next?
Okay.
I wish you said that.
On to you, Rob. Again, we're going to hear from Sean J. Merchant. The Ellison family will be out of Paramount in the next 5 to 7 years.
I think that's an overreaction because, look, I've never actually met David Ellison, but I do know he loves movies. He's been there for 15 years. He's been financing and bankrolling. What's that?
He really loves Warner Brothers.
Yeah, he loves Warner Brothers. I think David Ellison will keep making movies because I think he likes to make movies. I don't think he's going to be out. I think now they've got these ambitions that reach beyond making movies. And whether that is going to be something that they're going to be able to realize, I think that's more Larry Ellison's dream than it is David Ellison's dream. But Larry's his dad, and he is one of the richest men in the world, so why not go with it? But I don't think they're going to be out in 5 to 7 years.
You know what? I'm going to say this isn't an overreaction.
Okay.
And the reason I'm going to lean that way is because while I could be wrong, my impressions of David Ellison is he is a stomp your feet, petulant child that the moment he realizes he's not going to get his way or that things don't go the way he wants them to go, he's the type of guy who's going to take his ball and go home. Again, maybe that's unfair, but that is my impression of him right now is that, hey, listen, if they don't get Warner Brothers and then if things start going badly with Paramount and he's not able to just instantly turn everything around, he strikes me as the kind of guy who will just then stomp his feet, pick up his ball and say, well, I'm going to go home and I'm going to go do something else. Again, I hope I'm wrong about that. And maybe I am wrong, but that's kind of my impression. So based on that impression, I'm going to say, I don't think it's an overreaction to think he may not be there in 5 to 7 years. Hope I'm wrong though. I do hope I'm wrong. All right. What's
Okay,
next?
final one, John, back to you. We're going to hear from the antagonistic Anonymous. The death end of Homelander has now become one of the most anticipated death's ends of a character ever.
I don't think that's an overreaction, especially because you worded it right. You said one of the.
Yeah.
Because, when we think in terms of the character we all want to see die, I mean, will anything ever top Joffrey? I'm not sure.
Ramsay Bolton.
I was going to say, or in the same show, Ramsay Bolton. It's going to be tough to top those. But yeah, man, listen, I think it's going to be one of the great payoffs and emotional releases in watching something when Homelander ultimately buys it. By the way, should be said, we don't know for a fact that Homelander dies, but I think he will. And I think it'll be a very satisfying thing when it does. So I'm going to say this is not an overreaction. Rob, what do you think?
I don't think it's an overreaction either. And I think it proves a point I've been trying to make my whole life. Never, ever torment beautiful redheads. Because you have Sansa Stark, both Joffrey and Ramsay Bolton were horrible to her. And Queen Maeve, Homelander has not been nice. Maybe she's not a true redhead. Maybe she dyes her hair. But here's the thing. You do not ever diss a redhead. And if you do, you deserve to die horribly.
And all right, guys, that will wrap up your hot takes in today's installment of Overreaction. Thanks to everybody who sent in those hot takes. Keep your eyes open on the YouTube channel when we put out our call for you to submit those hot takes. And maybe you'll see your hot take featured on our next segment of Overreaction. All right, guys. With that down, we still got a couple other things to talk about, including actual industry reports suggesting that Paramount may actually now go take over or merge with Peacock. Gosh, I wonder where I've heard that before. Also, look at this. There's a brand new Mandalorian and Grogu trailer. We're going to break it down. But before we get to all that, we're going to take a second and talk about a bunch of other things going on in the world of entertainment news that we don't have time to talk about in depth, but we want to make sure you guys are caught up. So this is a little segment we call In Other News. First up, the Fast and Furious family is heading back to where it all began for their final lap. After years of driving cars through skyscrapers and even into outer space, studio executives admitted they may have gone too far. You think? Now, as has been previously reported, the goal is to bring the franchise back to its grounded roots, trading international heists for the gritty street racing culture of Los Angeles. An exec for the studio has just confirmed Vin Diesel has promised fans that this quote-unquote grand finale will honor the series' legacy through 3 major conditions. 1, a return to the LA streets. 2, a focus on authentic car culture, and 3, a digital reunion with the late Paul Walker's character, Brian O'Connor. While the 5-year gap between films is the longest in the series' history, the studio says the extra time is being used to lower costs and perfect a script that serves as a true tribute to the fans of the franchise. Next up, file this one under completely pointless, but it's gonna be huge. Netflix has officially announced its first ever live MMA event. MMA pioneers Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano are stepping out of retirement to face each other in the cage on May 16th. For Ronda Rousey, probably the most dominant female champion in UFC history, it's her first fight in a decade after a trailblazing career in the UFC and WWE. For Gina Carano, it's a return to her roots after her acting career was, well, famously derailed following her 2021 firing from the hit Star Wars series The Mandalorian. Now make no mistake, this is a massive gamble by Netflix to dominate live sports streaming. The event aims to capitalize on the massive audience that tuned in for last year's stupid Tyson-Paul boxing match, which was a complete joke, but hey, it did get giant numbers. By bringing together the 2 women who put female fighting on the map, Netflix is betting that nostalgia and high-stakes drama will turn this quote-unquote super fight into the most watched combat sports event in history. Now, whether you're a diehard fight fan or just curious to see Carano's next chapter, all eyes will be on the Intuit Dome this May in Los Angeles. Next up, and I hate hearing about this because I'm legitimately a big Shia LaBeouf fan, but actor Shia LaBeouf's Mardi Gras celebrations ended in handcuffs this week. Early Tuesday morning, the Transformer star was arrested in New Orleans, French Quarter, following an alleged physical altercation outside of a local bar. Reports indicate that after being escorted out of the venue, LaBeouf allegedly struck 2 people, including a staff member, leading to 2 charges of simple battery. Eyewitnesses and local staff described the actor's week-long stay in the city as increasingly erratic erratic, with some bartenders claiming that he had been terrorizing the neighborhood during a multi-day bar crawl. Video from the scene shows a shirtless LaBeouf being treated by paramedics before being taken into custody. This latest incident adds to a long history of legal and personal struggles for the actor, who was set to appear in a New Orleans court just hours after the festivities ended. Next up, and this sounds exciting to me, Walton Goggins and Chloe Grace Moretz are officially set to star in the upcoming action comedy Mr. Fresh off his massive success with Fallout, Goggins is teaming up with Moretz for a high-octane adventure set in the heart of Madrid. Now, the film marks the directorial debut of Wade Eastwood, the man responsible for some of the most jaw-dropping stunts in the Mission Impossible films and John Wick franchises. So you know that the action is going to be top tier. Produced by the same team that brought us John Wick, Mr. promises to blend sharp comedy with the gritty, stylized combat that we love. Now, specific plot details are still under wraps, but the production is moving fast, with filming scheduled to kick off this March in Spain. Next up, Dan Trachtenberg, the visionary behind Prey and 10 Cloverfield Lane, has officially headed back to Paramount Pictures with a massive 3-year first-look deal. This is a major homecoming for Trachtenberg, who actually started his feature career at Paramount. While the deal is focused on developing brand new original films and exploring the studio's massive library of hits, the biggest question on everyone's mind is, are we finally getting another Cloverfield? Trachtenberg says that while the deal wasn't made specifically for that franchise, the idea definitely came up in meetings, and he's been talking with J.J. Abrams about what could come next in the franchise. Now, if you're a Predator fan, don't panic just yet, because even though he set up shop at Paramount, Trachtenberg has confirmed that he's still working on the Predator franchise. He's currently balancing his new Paramount projects with the next steps for the Predator series, promising that, quote-unquote, everything is on the table. And finally, horror fans, get ready, because Dead by Daylight is officially making the jump to the small screen. According to reports, Blumhouse and James Wan's Atomic Monster are officially developing an animated series based on the hit survival horror game. This announcement comes right alongside the news that horror heavyweights Alexandra Aja and David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick have been tapped to write the long-awaited live-action movie. While the game has over 60 million players worldwide, these new projects aim to turn its terrifying trial loop into a full-blown cinematic universe. And that'll do it for In Other News. All right, and that wraps up In Other News. Hopefully, by the way, guys, we still do these periodically, so let me know down in the chat if you guys like In Other News or if you find it to be a bit of a waste of time, but let me know what you guys think of it. All right, with that all down, guys, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, there is a visionary, nay, legendary, online film pundit who has said for some time that he believes that at some point, Paramount will probably pivot away from trying to get its hands on Warner Brothers.
I wonder who we're talking about.
And maybe, as this glorious mind of a generation speculated, that instead they may actually end up going and maybe merging with NBC Universal Comcast at some point.
Really?
Yes, I can't remember his name. Visionary, very handsome guy from what I understand as well. Anyway, but now apparently there are actually insider industry reports suggesting that that may actually happen, as they are saying this: Comcast and Paramount may merge as both struggle with streaming. Goes on to say this: in the rapidly evolving landscape of digital entertainment, industry analysts are increasingly discussing the possibility of a merger between Comcast and Paramount Global to bolster their underperforming streaming platforms, according to Brian Lowry at Status. Comcast, Peacock, and Paramount's Paramount Plus have both encountered significant financial hurdles despite efforts to expand subscriber bases and content offerings. This potential consolidation comes as both companies navigate a competitive market dominated by larger players like Netflix, with smaller services struggling to achieve profitability. This is something Cord Cutter News posted about back in December of 2025 as a possibility, as both sides struggle with streaming. All right. So going back to what I had been talking about over the last few months, in that, you know, Comcast, which owns NBC Universal, they have made overtures and kind of dropped hints over the past year that they may be open to divesting themselves of NBC Universal and kind of moving back over to its core business, away from that. Again, nothing official, but just kind of like overtures. And it just seems to me, which is why I've talked about it for a few months, that it seems to make more sense that Paramount could pivot from Warner Brothers if what they want to do is expand their infrastructure and expand their libraries and all that kind of stuff, that NBC Universal could possibly be a much better target for them if they spun out parks and things like that as well to get to their core competencies. It seems like they do that. Now, what I don't see happening is Paramount buying Comcast, because Paramount can't afford Comcast, and Comcast ain't up for sale. But Comcast could be looking at getting rid of NBC Universal. And listen, they're not wrong in a increasingly competitive market space where Netflix, Disney Plus is profitable now, finally. You're going to have HBO, all that kind of stuff. Peacock and Paramount Plus are the scrawnier, nerdy kids on the football field. And if they could merge, you would have a more competitive streaming service, I think, in the current market. And again, to me, it just makes more sense. Now, is that going to happen? We haven't seen anything definitive that says it will. But, Rob, for me, it is interesting to see now people in the industry are starting to point that this looks like it could become an increasing possibility. Look, at the end of the day, I'd still like to see Paramount just make Paramount feasible again. But I think this would be a better target for Paramount looking at NBC Universal than, say, HBO at this point, which looks pretty married to Netflix. I don't know. You read this report. What are the things that are standing out to you?
Well, I think that, you have the libraries of two studios and a network. You have NBC, Universal, and Paramount that would be brought together here. The thing about streaming services is, look, it's a smorgasbord. Who has the most content? That's the most value for your money. And the fact is, you look at what we get with Netflix, it's extraordinary. They were smart. It's worldwide. Their library is deep. Even with their original productions, it's become deep.
I got the new name for you, too. Peacock. There you go. Copyright it. Peacock, coming soon to a streaming service near you.
Wow.
Like Parrot.
Somebody make that logo.
Someone is already
making the logo.
Yes. Some AI agent already heard you say that, and the AI demigods are making it now. No, but I think that makes sense. I mean, to me, I understand the business of that. But again, you have to control Universal too to keep that pipeline there, and I could see that it could happen. But at the end of the day, the difference is, for me, just because you have a studio doesn't mean you can have a network. It's such a weird thing. Like Paramount Plus, good idea, but it's not like Paramount Plus has 300 shows in the top 100, because there isn't 300 shows in the top 100. But they've already lost. I mean, that would make sure they could keep Taylor Sheridan, because he's going to Universal. So who knows? I mean, it makes sense. It's a move if that's what you're going to concentrate on, is streaming. But again, having a studio that feeds your streaming is what you want to do. That's why the Netflix deal makes sense with Warner Brothers. So what's Paramount going to do to Universal? How is that going to work? Paramount's like lesser than. So,
well, they're lesser than Warner Brothers too.
I know.
But I mean, if Comcast wants to offload it, I mean, it could become a possibility. By the way, somebody in the live chat also said another name is possibly Mount Cock.
Or reverse that.
Cock Mount.
Can you imagine the logo?
I want it to happen. Cock Mount. Streaming now. Only on Cock Mount. Yeah, look, again, if they're looking to unload it, they're looking to unload it. I much like the Warner Brothers situation, I would still rather see NBC Universal stay as its own independent thing. But it makes much more sense to me if I'm at Paramount. That makes much more sense to me as a target than, say, Warner Brothers. But It'll be interesting to see if this turns into anything. Remember, guys, let's emphasize this. This is what industry people are saying is looking like more and more makes sense, but there's no official word that this is what anybody's looking at. So just keep that in mind. But the question is for you. What do you think about this? The idea that Paramount may pivot away from Warner Brothers, as it looks more and more unlikely that that's going to happen, and maybe start setting their sights on NBC Universal. I don't know. Whatever you guys think about it, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. That down. Let's move on to this, shall we? They said it was coming out today, and today it did. The brand new Mandalorian and Grogu trailer dropped online today. Now, of course, this comes on the heels of a couple of things. Number one of the stupidest, dumbest, most inept, incompetent moves I've ever seen in movie marketing, where they literally spent about $10 million of the marketing budget on Mandalorian and Grogu for a frickin' spoof Clydesdale Budweiser ad spoof instead of dropping an actual trailer at the Super Bowl. I'm not saying you had to drop a trailer at the Super Bowl, but if you got a limited amount of money to spend on your marketing, why did you do that? Anyway, then it also came on the heels of a little teaser that they dropped yesterday. And I said, as somebody who's been fairly skeptical about this upcoming Mandalorian and Grogu movie, I said, you know what? The teaser hit the right notes. And so we'll see how the trailer itself turns out. And I've got thoughts. Now, understand again the background of this. I have been skeptical about this. I still question about why you're just making the first Star Wars movie in 7 years in theaters an extension of the TV show. The fact that you're doing it coming off of universally agreed upon the weakest season of The Mandalorian, which was not very good. You know, all that kind of stuff. Wasn't thrilled with the first little teaser trailer they put out a while ago. Hated what they did at the Super Bowl. And so now here we are. Not a bad trailer. Not a bad trailer. You know, I sat down and watched it this morning with my wife, Anne, and when it ended, my wife said, well, this is the first thing I've seen from this movie that's making me actually look forward to go seeing it. And I'm like, you know what? Yeah, again, using that classic Star Wars iconography there, you know, with the X-Wings, I liked, as a guy who loved Rebels, I like seeing Zeb. So seeing Zeb being back in there, I like seeing that too. The buff Hutt cage fighter looked a little bit better than I thought he was going to look like. You know, seeing little Baby Yoda jump in the stroller that actually has rocket boosters on it. I'm not going to lie. I got a kick out of that. So yeah, I think overall, I was pleasantly surprised by this trailer. I thought it was pretty good. That said, two big concerns I still have. This is now like the first full trailer, but they already dropped that first teaser. And I said, I don't mind that you're not giving us any of the story because it's just the first teaser. That's traditional. Wait till the next trailer. I watched this trailer. I couldn't tell you what the story of this movie is at all. I'm not saying give away spoilers. So I'm saying tell us what the movie's about. And all I know from watching this trailer, and again, remember, I've already said I think it's a pretty good trailer. But all I know from this trailer is that it's the next episode of The Mandalorian. That's all I know.
Yeah. They need to get Grogu somewhere. That's about all I could gather.
Yeah, apparently he's going to protect Grogu. The same thing he's done in every season. That leads me to my second concern. As much as I think that this was a pretty darn good trailer, it still just felt like a trailer to an upcoming episode of a TV show. Come on, guys. Be honest. It really just did feel like this week on Mandalorian, and it just felt like another commercial for another TV show. Nothing about this feels cinematic. Nothing about this feels like it has an epicness to it that demands it jump from the small screen to the big screen. And certainly nothing about it told me that this was worth waiting 7 years for. So, yeah, it still doesn't tell me at all what this is other than another episode of Mandalorian. It still just felt like a trailer for another episode of a television show. But given all of that, it was still a pretty good trailer. At least it's the best thing they've put out so far. And it's the first thing, Rob, that I'll admit moved the needle at least a little bit for me, because I haven't been all that excited about this. I can at least say this was the first time after watching this going, yeah, I'll look forward to watching this to see what it is. And that's the most I've felt so far. So in that regard, considering that this trailer did move the needle a little bit for me, I gotta call the trailer a success, because it has increased my interest in the movie at least a little bit, but I still carry some major concerns that they have not been able to address yet. Anyway, Rob, this is kind of like, they've dropped this new trailer, bunch of stuff in it. How did you feel about it?
I think, like you said, it looks like another episode of The Mandalorian. Do you know what I really missed? One of the things about The Mandalorian show is, and the Star Wars universe in general, is all the rich characters. Like, I loved, for instance, seeing Cobb Vanth. I loved seeing Bill Burr's character in the second season of Mandalorian. I liked seeing all the characters that populate the Mandalorian universe that the Mandalorian interacts with. Other than Sigourney Weaver, and you see that the Mandalorian's fighting a bunch of people, but they show us all these characters, but I want to have them talk to me. I want to feel that I'm in a universe full of Star Wars characters that are interesting. I mean, even if you have an exchange like in Mos Eisley when Han Solo says, "Over my dead body," and Greedo's like, "That's the idea." That alone, just that little bit. They're showing all this stuff. First of all, I thought Pedro Pascal's voiceover was laconic. It felt like he was sleepwalking through this trailer. And I'm looking at this and I'm waiting. I wanted to be excited, but they're playing gags that we've already seen a million times. Okay, so the rocket, I agree with you. The rocket pram was awesome, whatever that is. But God, how many times do we have to play this? By this time, we all know that he's 50 years old. He's got something going on. Give him more to do. They're just playing these old beats. It feels like I'm watching a familiar blanket run the paces through a TV movie trailer. And it's like, show me something that gets me excited. I liked hearing Sigourney Weaver talk, a little bit, but even she's like the good guy. Give me some colorful back and forth with some characters I'm excited about that I want to buy the action figures of.
There was one shot, and I don't know if it was like a Knight of Ren, and he made that statement. And well, actually, he wasn't speaking. It was actually voiceover of a Hutt saying, "We're gonna hurt you, and then we'll hurt him." But it sounded like it was one of the Knights of Ren. Had they expanded on that Knights of Ren are trying to find him, then you understand how that works with the new First Order. And
yeah,
you know what I mean?
Something they keep playing these.
Now remember,
beats.
this is prior to the emergence of the First Order.
But it's building. Yeah. It's building toward
But
it.
it's still, you got the Imperial remnants, whatever. I looked at this and I'm like, I don't need to watch him strap in Grogu again. I don't need don't press those buttons. Like, really?
And then save that for later, the eating thing.
Yeah, it's like, these are things that we have seen these jokes over and over again. And if this is what they're showing me, I can't get excited for this. But I will say this, it was better than anything we've seen. And I looked at it and I said, there's some scope here. There's something going on. I'm at least interested to see it. But again, it's like, guys, where's the cinematic nature of it? You are showing me things I've already seen. That's the thing that bugged me the most. Here's the thing. I want to love this, John. I want to love it. I want it to be great. I really do. But I'm looking at this and I'm showing, how many more times do I have to see these jokes that, okay, Grogu. No, Grogu's a wise guy. He's a badass.
Yeah, a wise guy.
Show me him being a badass. I don't need to show another, don't touch that button. Really? Aren't we past that?
Like, the most you saw was he destroyed that little bot. That little 6.
Yeah, that little droid, that droid. Again, look.
The Gonk droid. You can't destroy a Gonk droid. Why did you do that? I know.
In the bigger picture of it, I think it's the best piece of marketing they put out yet. I think it did look charming. It just, and I am now today, because of this trailer, more interested in seeing the movie than I was before. Again, though, my two big concerns is that it just feels like another episode of a television show. It does not feel cinematic. It does not feel like there's any... I haven't seen any justification in the trailer for why this has to make the jump from the small screen to the big screen. And I am worried about the potential of the movie. I'm worried about it. But again, this is at least the first positive thing I've seen. So we've got another major trailer coming from it in another month or so, about 6 weeks. We're going to get another trailer for it. Hopefully that one will push it over the edge. And we'll see. Anyway, guys, question is for you. What do you think about this? How did you feel about the new Mandalorian and Grogu trailer? Listen, despite the fact that it hasn't addressed any of my major concerns and it does still just feel like another episode of the TV show, it at least was a pretty good trailer and at least made me a little bit more interested in the series. It's the best thing they put out so far, I think. I don't know. Whatever you guys feel about it, jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, it's time for us to move on to the most important part of our show, which is, of course, taking your live comments and questions. But before we do, we have to do two things. First, bid good afternoon to writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, tell everybody again where they can go and check out True Noir.
Well, our star-studded audio drama that stars people like Michael Rosenbaum and Katie Sackhoff and Bill Sadler and David Strathairn and Anthony LaPaglia. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts. It's on Spotify. It's on Audible. It's at Apple Podcasts. I worked on it for a year and a half. It's based on Mystery Writers of America Grandmaster Max Allan Collins' book, True Detective. It's the first of his Nathan Heller series. And he also wrote the book that Road to Perdition is based on. So check it out. I busted my ass.
He really did, guys. And listen, the other thing that we need to do here is we're going to pay some of the bills around here by thanking the sponsor of today's episode of the John Campea Show, our friends at Factor. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Factor. Cold days, packed schedules, and let's be honest, when February hits, staying on track with eating well gets tough. And that's why I love Factor. Factor makes eating healthy deliciously easy with fully prepared meals designed by dietitians and crafted by chefs so you can eat well without the planning, shopping, or cooking. One of my main go-to meals lately is their high protein options. You're getting quality functional ingredients like lean proteins, colorful vegetables, whole foods, and healthy fats. Plus, they have over 100 rotating weekly meals, including Calorie Smart, Mediterranean, GLP-1 support, ready-to-eat salads, and even their new Muscle Pro collection for strength and recovery. Everything arrives fresh, never frozen, and is ready in about 2 minutes. All that and more is why I highly recommend Factor. Head to factormeals.com/Campea50off and use the code Campea50off to get 50% off and free breakfast for a year. Eat like a pro this month with Factor. New subscribers only, varies by plan. One free breakfast item per box for 1 year while subscription is active. And thank you to our friends at Factor for sponsoring today's episode of the John Campea Show. All right, guys, with that all down and out of the way, let's get over to the important stuff, your questions that you guys have been sending in. So, Jonathan, what we got up first?
Okay, first up, we're going to hear from Silent Ghost. Watch K-pop Demon Hunters and loved it. Great soundtrack and story. I'm obsessed with all the songs. Think it'll win Best Song in Animated Film.
I think they'll win Best Song. I don't think they'll win Best Animated Film. I'll be honest, I don't think the movie's all that great. I think it's okay. I think it's a cute thing. I am obsessed with the music like you are, though. I love the music in it. So I don't think it'll win Best Animated, but I do think it'll win Best Song. All right, what's next?
Screen Speak says, John, your best spot for Ohio if you're deciding is Cincinnati. Columbus is in the middle of Ohio, which is a good idea. Hope that helps you.
You know what I didn't know?
What's that?
Because somebody asked about Ohio the other day.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Canadian. I don't need to know this stuff, but I kind of always assumed that the two biggest cities in Ohio were Cincinnati and Cleveland. Turns out Columbus is far bigger than both of them.
Yeah, but most people know Cincinnati or Cleveland.
Yeah, because there's major sports teams there. Well, there's the Columbus Blue Jackets, I guess. And you know what? So I think I've decided when I do a movie meetup in Ohio, I think it will be in Columbus because not only is it the biggest city they have, but it's also kind of in between Cincinnati and Cleveland. Like it's an hour and 20 minutes from Cincinnati and I think about 2 hours from Cleveland. So if anybody really wants to go from those two cities, they can make the drive out. So Yeah, I think it's probably going to end up being Columbus.
We got we got Mike Vetter. June and July, 8 out of 9 weeks have one major film release from June 5th to July 31st. Masters of the Universe, Disclosure Day, Toy Story 5, Supergirl. And here,
Minions.
yeah. Oh, here we go. Minions, Monsters, Moana, The Odyssey, skip July 23rd, and then you got Spider-Man Brand New Day. Could this be the biggest 2-month stretch in film history?
Could be. Sure. Unlikely. I mean, I think if you go back, especially around 2019, going all the way back from 2019 back to 2015, you had a couple of really big 2-month stretches in there. So could it be? Yeah, could, but I wouldn't count on that. All right, what's next?
Silent Ghost says, one of my favorite film lines is now Sammy. Jack O'Connell should have gotten an Oscar nom for Sinners Overreaction.
I would have been perfectly happy had he got a nomination for that. I thought he was great in it. When I look at the list of nominees, though, while I would have been perfectly good with him being nominated, I have no real objections that he didn't because the lineup is so strong. And I don't see anybody on the list that I think is an automatic no-brainer, bump them off the list to make room for him. Again, had he been on it, great. But yeah, I'm okay that he didn't. He was great in it. I loved him in it. But I'm okay that he didn't get the nomination. All right, what's next?
Silent Ghost. Do you prefer living in Canada or the U.S.?
Canada.
It's your home country.
Yeah. I mean, and I've got my other reasons too. I really do prefer living in Canada, but my very number one biggest job in life is to be a husband to my wife, and her career is here and her family is here, and I love her family. And so for now, that's why we're here. But at some point we will move back to Canada. All right, what's next?
Silent Ghost, thinking about moving out of West Virginia after I graduate, preferably a place near an IMAX, Dolby, or 40X theater. Any state or city recommendations?
Well, I mean, I'm not. I don't know all the U.S. cities. Like, I've visited a bunch of U.S. cities for a day or two. I mean, look.
And we'd have to know what he prefers, weather-wise, like culturally-wise. So
look, all I'll say is this, is one of the things that has really been great about doing the movie meetups is I've gotten to visit, I think, 18 U.S. cities that I had never been to before. And really enjoyed all of them. Like, really have. So listen, if you're looking at moving around somewhere in the U.S., all I can say is there's many, many great choices.
Yeah.
Whether it's places like, I mean, Ann and I both love Austin, Texas. I love Austin, Texas. Denver was surprisingly awesome. I loved Denver. There's a whole bunch of great cities here. So you'll have a big list of options to pick from. All right, what's next?
John Redcorn, is Shia LaBeouf's career over? I mean, it hasn't really been what it used to be for years.
Yeah.
Ever since his car crash, when he was shooting, and he broke his hand when he was shooting.
Yeah.
That was like I was actually at the Troubadour the same night he was there, and then he left and got in that car crash. Just oddly weird timing.
But, I am a really big fan of his as an actor. I think he's a tremendous actor. I really do. He's a phenomenal actor. But it seems to me, as an outsider looking in, that it's much like the same stuff that happened with frickin', why am I freezing on Flash?
Ezra Miller.
Ezra Miller. It's all self-inflicted wounds. It's in tennis terms, it's all unforced errors.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope his career isn't over because he's got a lot to offer as an on-screen talent. But I mean, I don't know who's going to take a chance on him at this point. Anyway. All right, what's next?
We got Raymond Verrata. For me, there's nothing new with the Mandalorian trailer, same Star Wars jokes, but I'll still watch it. It's the Razor Crest Apology Tour.
The Razor Crest Apology
That's
Tour.
That's pretty good.
I don't disagree. And like Rob was kind of making the same point. There's nothing new in there that we haven't seen in Mandalorian already. Right? Look, Grogu likes to eat, that little rascal. And Grogu is being mischievous, hitting the buttons, that little rascal. I told you guys, remember the other week somebody asked, I don't think they're going to show Pedro's face in the trailer. Like, it's Pedro Pascal. They're going to show his face in the trailers. And sure enough, they did a lot of that. But yeah, again, I think it was a good trailer. I just think it was a good trailer for the next episode of the TV show. It didn't feel like a trailer for a motion picture. I've yet to see a justification about why they're putting this on the big screen. Because to me, it still just looks like another episode. But again, I'm kind of excited to see Zeb. So there we go. All right, what's next?
Silent Ghost is back. Says, been your top fan on multiple streams. Keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you, man.
Feel like Remic's offer of fellowship and love is tempting in today's climate. From Sinners.
Listen, but even in that environment, like what was powerful about it too was like the social context that it was in. Like it was powerful because you talk about that period of time and then he shows up and he gives the same message to everybody, but then he shows up to this, like in the South, this all black big party going on, who are facing so many hurdles and so many obstacles and so much oppression. And for him to show up and go, we just want fellowship and love. That's all we want. Like, you don't think that doesn't sound appealing? Like to everybody, but like to that group particularly as well. I mean, that's just why it's still my favorite movie of the year. Like if I was an Oscar voter, and I'm not, I know a bunch of them, but if I were an Oscar voter, I would be voting for Sinners as best picture of the year. It's not, I don't think it's going to win, but it would get my vote. And that's just one of the reasons why. All right. What's next?
We got Jamie Sundays. This Mando trailer felt like when a team is down by 30 points in the fourth quarter with 2 minutes to go and the losing team does a between the legs dunk.
That's not a bad analogy. It's kind of like, it's kind of like the Patriots in the Super Bowl. They got absolutely spanked. And then in the fourth quarter, they pulled off a couple of big plays and put some points on the board, but it was already game over. Is that the case with Mandalorian? Is the game already over and now they're just putting up some empty points with this trailer? I choose not to believe that. Like, look, at the end of the day, with all my skepticism and all my concerns about Mandalorian and Grogu, at the end of the day, it's still John Favreau. And if you don't think John Favreau can pull something out, then I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's still John Favreau. He could still pull something out here that's really special. So that is the one thing I'm hanging my hat on to try to stay somewhat optimistic about this project. Anyway. All right. What's next?
We got, Christopher Diaz. Thoughts on Spartacus House of Asher, season 1.
Loved it. Loved it. I mean, not as much as I loved the original Spartacus series, but man, there's just something about the way Stephen S. DeKnight and his writing team, the way they write dialogue. I could just listen to them talk. I could honestly watch an entire episode of just Asher and like all these other characters just standing around a room talking the way they talk. I love it, but it's also brutally violent and hypersexual, and it's all this kind of stuff. It's just a bombastic kind of show. I love it. I thought it was great. I really enjoyed it. All right, what's next?
We got Pedro Rodriguez. Howdy, John. So I have an MCU question. Who do you think is most likely to show up in a live-action MCU project? Moon Knight or Icarus? Thanks for your time. Well, I think maybe he means like a movie, because Moon Knight was in the live action.
And so was Icarus.
Yeah.
But I mean, to show up in something other than a Marvel's What If.
Right.
So, okay. It's an interesting question. I honestly think we've seen the last of both. Like, even if there's another Eternals, I don't think we're getting we're not seeing
that
Icarus
seemed
again.
pretty final.
Yeah, that seemed pretty fine. So I don't think either, but I guess the one that has the better chance would be Moon Knight. So yeah, I'll say Moon Knight on that. All right, what's next?
Rutger Cole. I know they didn't do this in the trailer, but if Mando willingly takes off his helmet in the movie, it will make season 3 even more pointless. Right? We've seen him in two scenes in the trailer.
Not necessarily. And the reason why is because, remember, in Mandalorian, the series, he was always raised and believed there was one kind of Mandalorian, period. But as the series progresses,
Yeah.
he realizes, oh, there's other
Right.
parts to the Mandalorian culture.
He wasn't so orthodox with it.
Yeah, that aren't as perfect word, Jonathan, that aren't as orthodox about taking the helmet off or not. He met some true Mandalorians who take their helmets on and off, no problem. And it expanded his worldview. So I don't think it negates anything for him to maybe be a little bit more lax on taking the helmet off now and again, because that's been a part of his character journey that's been narrated out. So I wouldn't be against that so much. All right, what's next?
King Daddy Goat says, life's rough now. Thanks for being my friends.
Oh, no problem. And again, that's one of the great things about movie communities, man. Movies and movie communities that celebrate them. All right, what's next?
Rudger says, I also think that in The Pit season 2, Dr. Al's subplot with her app is so bad. The way she talks about it seems very forced and unnatural.
I disagree. It's not, by the way, it's not Dr. Al, it's Dr. AI.
Dr. AI.
Because she developed, like, this new doctor has developed this AI to help doctors with their charting. And I don't think it sounded forced or unnatural at all. I have been around many, many people who have developed a new system or a new product or a new software that they believe is going to be the answer to everything. And I think she kind of talks exactly like all those people who I've known talk. So I don't find it forced or unnatural at all, to be honest with you. I found it to be actually strikingly authentic. I really do. All right, what's next?
Crazy Vegas says, I've fallen down a Michael Jackson tunnel in preparing for the biopic and just watched This Is It for the first time. OMG, we were robbed of a great show.
I don't know what This Is It is.
That was like a live concert that was coming out.
Oh, okay.
And it was around the time that he passed away.
Okay. I mean, look, yeah, man, I'm, whew. Number one, I'll be excited for any Antoine Fuqua film. But finally doing a Michael Jackson biopic, and that first trailer blew the door. I'm telling you, it's going to be the first biopic to join the $1 Billion Club. It just will. And I'm very, very excited to see it. All right, what's next?
Kevin Rubio says, last night CBS censored Stephen Colbert over an appearance of a Texas politician. Surely that will come into play with Warner Discovery stockholders and their decision.
Okay, you're technically speaking, that's not correct. So, Stephen Colbert did an interview with, quite honestly, I mean, look, I'm not bringing politics into my show, but Kevin just asked a question, so I'm going to at least use the door to just kind of address something here. My absolute favorite politician in the world right now.
Was that Tallarico?
James, I think his first name's James.
Yeah.
Tallarico, out of Texas. The only politician I've ever seen who remotely has even the vaguest proper understanding of what Christianity is. Never mind all the fake, maggot, blasphemous, heretical, twisted, perverted versions of Christianity. Like, this is the first politician I've ever seen who really has a true fundamental understanding of what biblical Christianity is and what role it should play in public service and government, and what role it should not play in government. And I think the guy is remarkable. I really, really do. If he was in California, I would probably retire. I'm not kidding. I would probably retire right now and dedicate all my time to helping get this guy elected. I mean, anyway. So Colbert had him as a guest on his show. And the FCC stepped in and said, nah, you're not allowed to have Democrats on unless you also have Republicans on. And so could CBS have kind of pushed back on that? They probably could have. And I'm not a big fan of CBS right now, but to be fair, I think that was more of an FCC thing. So what Colbert did was he just did the interview anyway and put it on YouTube.
Right.
So go look for it. It's a remarkable interview.
Yeah, it's all social. It's TikToks, YouTube, everything, you know?
Yeah. So it's a remarkable interview. And again, this guy has become the one politician that I'm actually legitimately a fan of. And I would like this guy. I'm not saying this guy needs to be president or anything, but I think more of his influence needs to be over the current political conversation, I think. But anyway, that's just me. All right, what's next?
We got Stephen Austin. John, are you more excited for Mandalorian and Grogu this year? Were you more excited for Lilo and Stitch? I felt like you were really excited for Lilo and Stitch.
I was more excited for Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, you were looking forward to that.
Again, this trailer is the best thing they've put out so far. And it has moved the needle for me, and I'm a little bit more excited to see it now. But I'd be lying if I straight up said, I'm excited to see Mandalorian and Grogu. I'm not there yet, and this trailer didn't get me there. It's moved me a little bit closer to it, but I was really excited about Lilo and Stitch. I was really excited about it. Now, did that movie turn out to be as good as I hoped it would be? Not quite, but it was still really entertaining. But yeah, I was easily more excited for Lilo and Stitch than I currently am for Mandalorian and Grogu. All right, what's next?
Tommy Lee says, with the $20 super chat.
Thank you, Tommy.
Yeah, says, I don't write a lot of messages to you guys. Just wanted to say I've been watching for 7 years. And
thank you.
Still love your show. Question, how do you decide which questions to read or not read? What questions go too far?
I mean, it's not like there's one kind of question. As you guys know, at the start of every show, we say in the second part of the show, we're going to take your live questions as long as we deem it appropriate to be addressed on the show. And what could be defined as inappropriate is more of an art than a science. But I'll just give you some examples. Number one, people trying to use a super chat as free advertising for something they have.
Right.
That's an instant no. If you want to advertise on the show, great. It's $3,000 for a spot. If you want to, email us. We'll figure it out. But yeah, the live chats are meant to also be entertaining to our audience and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying, hey, we take your advice. Me and my friends are making a fan film. That's fine. That's cool. Fine. But like literally we get stuff like, John, I wanted to let you know that my new self-produced album titled whatever is now available on Spotify. Yeah. Like that's clearly somebody trying to get an advertising spot for $5 on the show. So we don't allow that. Anything that gets, anything racist, anything homophobic, obvious stuff like that. Things that are just meant to cause arguments,
right,
or just obvious trolling.
Troll jobs, yeah.
We'll just say, you know what? No, we see what you're trying to do, and we're just gonna skip this question. Big, obvious, blatant spoilers we will try to avoid. So yeah, like we don't have a written down specific things. Here's the 10-point checklist. It's more of it's like porn. You know it when you see it. And like, so we can see a question that comes in and go, okay, that clearly is not something. Or here's another one. Something that is just, because remember, the Q&A part of the show is also meant to entertain the whole audience.
Yeah.
And sometimes people write something in that's very extremely personal that will have no bearing or reflection or value to all the people watching the show rather than the one person sending in the question. And so we got to weigh that and go, do we really want to waste the thousands of people who are watching this time by addressing a question that clearly has no relevance to them whatsoever? So sometimes we make that decision too. So again, it's really more of a art than it is a science. All right, what's next?
We got Fager Zord, who says, I think the Ellisons feel like they don't have enough IP to work with Paramount alone, hence the fixation on getting WB. P.S. Love the show.
I think they know they've got some really good IP, and then you just create new movies.
Right.
Like, listen, a lot of that big streak that Warner Brothers had with breaking the opening weekend box office records, like 7 films in a row and all that kind of stuff, a lot of those were original films. So it's like, they have it. They just, and listen, I don't think they're wrong for this. They see there being strategic advantages to also having that IP library and the infrastructure and the distribution networks that Warner Brothers have. There is advantages for Paramount to owning Warner Brothers. I've never suggested that there isn't. And I do think they see that and recognize that. I just don't like the way they're going about trying to get it and just focusing more on making Paramount better. But there are advantages to it. There are, 100%. All right, what's next?
We got Zach, who says, thoughts on Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die.
Never saw it. Haven't seen it yet myself.
It's on my list.
Yeah, on my list. Ann and I are going to go see it, but there were other films we wanted to see first.
We got 4 more here. Patrick Larson says, what are your perfect movies? Mine are 12 Angry Men and Shawshank Redemption.
Number one, there's no such thing as a perfect movie.
Yeah.
Now, I've seen movies that I've called flawless, but that's still not perfect. You know, you can do something right, but it still could have been done even better. You know what I mean?
Right.
So in that sense, there's no such thing as a perfect film. That said, if I were to give a couple of films that get at least close to that, Star Wars, Shawshank Redemption, Ben-Hur, Lawrence of Arabia, The Godfather, Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Those would be some film. Amelie. Those would be some films that I would put up there. I mean, they're not perfect, but get close to it. Get close to it.
We got Sebastian who says, hey, which Disney movie will be big at the box office toy store?
Probably meant Hopper.
Yeah.
Obviously, Toy Story would
Toy
be the
Story
bigger
or
one.
Hopper. Yeah, Toy Story.
Hopper's may be the better one.
Yeah.
It might end up being the better one, but Toy Story's Toy Story, man.
Yeah.
I mean, its last 2 films both made over $1 billion at the box office, and it's Toy Story. It will be the bigger film. Now, again, what will be the better film is another question altogether. Is that it?
Yeah. No, 2 more.
2 more. Right.
Sebastian says, do you think GOAT, Sony's animation, is going to be one of the biggest animations of the year? I mean, it doesn't seem like it's tracking that way.
No. I've heard. I haven't seen it. I've heard it's good.
Right
I've
now
heard it's good, but its opening weekend was 27 million.
Yeah.
Yeah. You think that's going to be bigger than Toy Story? No. I think even Hoppers is going to be much bigger than that. So no, I think it could be one of the better animated films of the year, but it's not going to be one of the biggest. All right. What's next?
Final one. Super Nintendo Chalmers. You can only choose one movie to watch, and your choices are Star Trek Nemesis or The Final Frontier. I will go The Final Frontier because I just love the Shatner era.
Which one was The Final Frontier? Is that
That
the
was
one where
number
they find
5.
God?
Oh, no. Oh, shoot. Yeah. Because Undiscovered Country was 6, so it's number 5.
Yeah.
It's where they find God.
Undiscovered Country was awesome.
Yes.
Cry havoc and let loose the dogs of war.
Yeah, essentially all the even numbers were like the best of
all
those.
the odd number ones were bad.
Yeah.
All the even numbers were bad. I would still take, what's the name of it again?
Nemesis or Frontier? Frontier.
I'll still take Frontier over Nemesis.
So will I. Because you know what? I love that whole with the doctor and he's like has that monologue with that godlike entity and he has that epiphany. I love that moment. I'll take that.
When the Almighty, you
Yeah.
don't ask him for his ID. You know what the one thing, listen, here's the thing. I never think when you're making a comic book movie or anything like that, I don't think it's the most important thing in the world to get somebody who looks just like them. I don't believe that at all. That's been proven 100 times that's not important. But with Nemesis, the one thing that always drove me crazy, if you're casting a character who's supposed to be a genetic clone of another character, you should probably get somebody who looks kind of like your starting character.
Yeah.
If they're supposed to be a genetic clone. And while I thought Tom Hardy was pretty good in the movie,
Mm-hmm.
Tom Hardy looks nothing like a younger Patrick Stewart. Like nothing. They try to get away with it by shaving his head.
Right.
But I mean, there's literally nothing that resembles those two guys, and they're supposed to be genetically identical to each other. I just thought, if you're going to have characters that are literally supposed to be genetical clones of each other, you should probably try to find a performer that looks a little bit more like the starting character. So yeah, that was always a weird thing to me. Even the first time I watched the movie, I thought it was pretty weird. And all right, guys, that'll do it for today's installment of the John Campea Show. Thank you so much for being here and making our little show part of your day. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in questions. Number one, because you gave us great fun things to talk about. But number two, you supported this channel as you did it, and all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Again, big thanks to writer, director, producer Robert Meyer Burnett. Make sure you guys go and check out True Noir. Our technical producer, Jonathan Voico.
See you guys later.
My name's John Campea, and until tomorrow, my friends, bye-bye.